Husker Extra Game Day. Steve Sipple alongside Brian Christopherson, as always.
We meet again.
Yes, we meet a lot, don't we?
Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah, and you like that. So we're going to talk about Nebraska, Washington, two 2-0 teams, 2 wins, no losses. Washington comes to Lincoln for a 2:30 p.m. game Saturday. Washington has won, like I said, 2 games, one against Eastern Washington narrowly, 30-27, and got out-yarded by a 2-1 margin. Then they came back with a little better win against Hawaii. Brian, what do you think?
Well, there's been some hand-wringing in these parts, too, about how Nebraska played against Fresno State on Saturday, obviously winning the game 42-29, but it sure wasn't easy. So I think you're looking for Nebraska to take some steps, especially on the line play this week, and I know that's one of the points you're about to get to.
Well, thank you, Brian, for that easy segue. You saw that we were sitting up there in the Holiday Bowl on that cold night, right?
Yeah.
Kind of drizzly.
It was.
Washington came out and took it to Nebraska from the start, and which leads me to the first key of the game. John Papuchis says Nebraska wants to establish a physical nature early, and the way you do that in part is by slugging it out against Washington's offense and stopping the run. Washington ran 52 times for 268 yards in the Holiday Bowl last December, and I got a feeling some Nebraska defensive players are sort of embarrassed about that.
Yeah, and Fresno State just ran for 190 yards on Nebraska. That was probably the most surprising aspect of that game, was that Fresno State ran it right at Nebraska's defensive line, which I think a lot of us considered the strength of this team going into the season. So, I mean, Fresno State ran 81 plays, and Nebraska didn't have a tackle for a loss in that game. So, Nebraska's got to get a better push up front.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that's a good point. Number 2, special teams. You saw what I saw. Brian Devin Wiley of Fresno State, took a punt back 67 yards for a touchdown. Nebraska ranks 97th nationally in defending punt returns and 72nd defending kickoff returns. So those areas will be in focus going forward.
Yeah, they've been good at returning kicks, but covering them on that end, they haven't done a really good job the first 2 weeks. And obviously that 67-yard return is going to skew your numbers a little bit and make you rank pretty low. But it was a kind of embarrassing play for Nebraska.
Yeah, John Papuchis, the special teams coordinator for Nebraska, has said something interesting. That he said there are 8 breakdowns on that play.
It looked like it.
Yeah, he said it was the perfect storm of breakdowns.
I can believe there were about 8 breakdowns when you saw it happen.
Yeah, he would drive a coach crazy. Now the third thing, a little nitpicky, I think, but Nebraska, Tyler Legate told me this, and Tim Beck told me this. Both, unsolicited, said we want to get off to a faster start. Nebraska fans might have noticed Nebraska went 3 and out on their opening possessions in both games this year. And they want to get out of the gate and score, obviously. So it seems a little nitpicky, but I get it. They want to establish some momentum early, which they've lacked.
It's not at all, because especially when they're at home, I think Nebraska plays a little tight at home.
Yeah.
And if Washington gets out early in this game, you know how it is in that stadium. There's some negativity that goes on. It gets a little toxic. So if Washington gets out early, there's a lot of pressure on that team. I think it's going to be key who scores first in this game.
Interesting. Well, we'll see. Look for a post-game analysis on HuskerExtra.com following the game. And in our next segment, we'll get an injury report from BC.